What if the kid everyone laughs at in court is actually the smartest person in the room? Picture this, a teenager in ripped jeans, nervously fidgeting in front of a towering judge, while the courtroom snickers at his presence. To everyone, he looks like a lost boy out of place in the harsh world of justice. But what no one knows, what no one even dares to imagine is that this teenager, Ethan T., who he seems, behind those innocent eyes hides a razor-sharp mind, a genius who is prepared for this exact moment. And when he finally reveals his true identity, the entire courtroom will be left in stunned silence. It all began when Ethan, a 17-year-old from a small town, was dragged into court for something he didn't even do. He had defended a younger kid from being bullied by a local rich man's son, and somehow the tables turned. Instead of being praised, Ethan found himself accused of assault. Sitting in that courtroom, he felt the weight of eyes piercing through him, judges, lawyers, and the smug father of the so-called victim, the judge, an older man with a sharp tongue, looked at Ethan and let out a laugh. "What is this? A child in my courtroom? Do you even understand where you are, boy?" The audience chuckled, whispering, pointing. To them, it was entertainment. A clueless teenager up against the might of the legal system. But Ethan stood tall, his fists clenched at his sides. He knew this was his chance to turn the tables, because what no one realized was that Ethan had been studying law since he was 12. His father, a once brilliant attorney, had raised him with the sharpness of a trial lawyer. While other kids played games, Ethan memorized case law, dissected arguments, and learned courtroom strategies. His young face may have fooled them, but his mind was sharper than anyone sitting in that room. The opposing lawyer smirked and whispered to the judge, "This will be quick." But Ethan's calm eyes betrayed something else: confidence. Focus, almost a secret waiting to explode. And when the moment came for him to speak, he didn't stutter, he didn't tremble. Instead, his voice rang through the courtroom with a clarity that froze everyone in their seats. "Your Honor," Ethan began, "with all due respect, I understand this courtroom better than the man trying to mock me. And if you'll allow me, I can prove that this entire case is built on lies." Gasps filled the air. The judge leaned forward, narrowing his eyes, suddenly not so amused. The smug lawyer turned pale, because in that instant, they realized this boy wasn't ordinary. And what Ethan revealed next would turn the entire courtroom upside down. The room was silent, except for the faint squeak of the judge's chair as he shifted forward, peering at Ethan as though trying to see him for the first time. A teenager standing at the defense table was nothing unusual. Juveniles ended up in court all the time, but this wasn't the typical picture. Ethan wasn't trembling. He wasn't begging for leniency. He looked calm, collected, dangerous. The judge raised an eyebrow. "You think you can prove something, boy?" His voice carried a note of irritation, but beneath it was a flicker of curiosity. "Yes, Your Honor," Ethan replied steadily, "and I'll start by asking a simple question. Why does the plaintiff's witness statement contradict the police report?" The opposing attorney's head snapped up. His smug grin cracked into panic for just a second, before he forced it back into place. "Objection, Your Honor. This child doesn't know what he's talking about." But Ethan didn't stop. He'd spent years watching his father tear apart false testimonies in courtrooms just like this. He had studied transcripts until his eyes ached. All that knowledge spilled out like a river breaking through a dam. On page 3 of the official report, Ethan said, holding up a copy, "The witness claims the incident took place at 5:45 p.m., outside Mason's diner. But according to the security footage, which I've secured, my client," meaning myself, "wasn't even in the vicinity until 6:10 p.m. That's a 25-minute gap." "Someone's lying," a murmur ran through the crowd. The judge's eyes narrowed. "And you have this footage?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir, on a flash drive, ready for the court to see." The opposing attorney's face flushed red. He scrambled for words, but Ethan wasn't done. Furthermore, Ethan continued, his voice calm but firm, "The medical report of the alleged victim shows a bruise on his left cheek. But the witness said, I struck him on the right side." Yes. If their story was true, that's a physical impossibility. The audience gasped, heads turned. Suddenly, the room that had been laughing at him minutes ago was now listening with rapt attention. The boy who seemed like an easy target was dismantling the case like a professional. The judge slammed his gavel. "Order in the court." But even he couldn't hide the way his jaw clenched, the way his hand gripped the bench a little tighter. Ethan was winning ground, and everyone knew it. The plaintiff, the rich man's son, squirmed in his seat. His father, a powerful businessman, leaned in close to the lawyer, hissing angry words. Their arrogance was cracking, and Ethan saw it. He pressed harder. "Your Honor," he said, "this entire case is an attempt to frame me for something I didn't do. The plaintiff attacked another boy, and when I stepped in to stop it, he turned the story against me. I may be young, but truth doesn't need age to be seen. It needs facts, and the facts are on my side." The judge leaned back, rubbing his chin. He wasn't ready to admit it, but the shift in his eyes told the story Ethan wasn't just some kid anymore. He was a storm. And then the twist came. The opposing attorney straightened suddenly, a cold smile spreading across his lips. "Very clever, boy. But let's see if you're ready for this." He snapped his fingers, and an aide brought forward a new document. "We have a sworn affidavit," the lawyer said triumphantly, "by 2 additional witnesses who place you at the scene of the fight. So let's see how well your little game holds up against sworn testimony." The crowd erupted in whispers. Ethan's heart pounded, but he didn't flinch, because deep down he knew something the lawyer didn't. The so-called witnesses weren't strangers. They were pawns. Ethan had been expecting them all along. Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smile as the lawyer paraded the new affidavits like trophies. To the crowd, it looked like a slam dunk. To Ethan, it looked like desperation. "Your Honor," the lawyer said smugly, "these sworn statements come from 2 respectable citizens who saw the defendant at the scene. That's not circumstantial. That's direct testimony." The judge adjusted his glasses and skimmed the documents. "These seem compelling," he muttered, glancing at Ethan. "Do you have a response?" Ethan's calm gaze never wavered. "Yes, Your Honor, I do. In fact, I'd like the court to meet these 2 respectable citizens." The lawyer's smile faltered. Ethan turned toward the gallery. A woman and a man stood nervously near the back, avoiding eye contact. Ethan's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Mr. Callahan, Mrs. Reeves, would you like to tell the court how much you were paid to sign those statements?" Gasps filled the air. The man stuttered, "Woo. We don't know what he's talking about." Ethan stepped forward, holding up his phone. "Because I do. I have a recording. Recording of the plaintiff's attorney arranging a meeting with you both. Offering you cash. Offering protection. Offering to make sure the kid goes down, and in your own voices you accepted." The lawyer's face turned pale. His composure cracked for the first time. "Objection, this is outrageous. That recording is inadmissible." The judge cut him off sharply. "Sit down." Gavel slammed against the bench. "If what this young man is claiming is true, then we are no longer dealing with a simple assault case. We're looking at perjury, witness tampering, conspiracy." The courtroom buzzed with shock. Ethan's voice carried above it all. "Your Honor, I may look like a kid in a suit, but I know what justice is supposed to mean. It's not about rich families buying outcomes or lawyers twisting the truth. It's about facts. It's about fairness. It's about making sure that people who abuse the system are held accountable." The judge stared at Ethan, silent for a long, heavy moment. Finally, he turned to the lawyer. "Is there anything you want to say before I order a recess and demand the DA's office open an investigation?" The lawyer was sweating now, his arrogance replaced by panic. The plaintiff's father clenched his fists, whispering furiously, but it was too late. The narrative had flipped. A boy they thought they could crush had turned the entire courtroom against them. Ethan glanced toward the gallery where his mother sat. She had tears in her eyes. For the first time since this nightmare began, she looked proud and safe. But Ethan wasn't celebrating yet. He knew powerful men didn't give up easily. The lawyer and the businessman had cards left to play. He'd have to be ready when they tried again. Still, in that moment, a teenager stood in a courtroom full of doubters and showed them all that brilliance Dosen. "T come with Ijit, comes with courage." The recess was called, but no one in that courtroom left their seats. Whispers bounced off the walls as the scandal sunk in. Teenager had just dismantled a seasoned attorney in front of everyone. When the judge returned, his tone was different, sharper, more cautious. "Court is back in session. Mr. Donovan," he said, addressing the wealthy businessman who had brought the lawsuit. "You sit here demanding justice while it appears your team has been manufacturing lies. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" The businessman leaned forward, his voice like steel. Your Honor, this boy is clever, I'll admit that, but he's still just a boy. He hacked into my attorney's private calls. He broke the law. And he has the audacity to parade it around like evidence. Are we really entertaining this nonsense? The lawyer, still sweating, nodded frantically. Yes, he's not even licensed. He's playing dress-up in a courtroom. A ripple of laughter swept through the gallery, but it was cut short by Ethan's calm, steady voice. Your Honor, may I? The judge, visibly intrigued, gave him a nod. Ethan lifted a folder from his briefcase. This isn't about age, it's about truth. And truth leaves a trail. You claim I hacked calls? Fine. Then how do you explain signed banking records from your firm payments wired to those two witnesses the day before they swore their statements? He handed the folder to the bailiff, who delivered it to the bench. The judge scanned the papers, his brow furrowing deeper with every line. And Ethan continued, his voice unwavering. A licensed attorney did authorize me to assist in this case. I may look like a teenager, but I passed the bar under a mentorship program for gifted students. I didn't need to pretend. I am an attorney. The crowd gasped. The judge looked up, astonishment flickering in his eyes. You're saying you've been legally qualified this whole time? Yes, Your Honor. I kept it quiet because people like Mr. Donovan assume youth equals weakness. They mock what they don't understand, but I don't need their approval. I just need the law. The businessman's face twisted with fury, slammed his hand on the table. This is outrageous. Do you know who I am? Ethan's reply was swift. A man who thought money could buy truth? A man who thought intimidation could silence justice? Right now. You're just another defendant waiting to be investigated. The courtroom erupted, half in cheers, half in stunned silence. The judge banged his gavel furiously. Order in the court. When quiet finally fell, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze landing on Ethan. Young man, or should I say counselor, I have underestimated you. Now this case has taken a turn I did not expect. For that, I owe you my respect. The businessman's shoulders sagged. For the first time, power had slipped from his hands. The boy he mocked as a child had outmaneuvered him at every step. Ethan exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. He wasn't finished yet. He knew this fight wasn't just about his mother or even about himself. It was about sending a message that arrogance, corruption, and bullying had limits. When pushed too far, even a teenager could draw the line. And in that courtroom, every person felt the shift. Justice didn't just belong to the powerful anymore. The air in the courtroom was heavy as the judge adjusted his robe and looked over the papers one last time. The gallery was silent now, everyone on the edge of their seats. The businessman's face was flushed with anger, his lawyer trembling beside him. Mr. Donovan, the judge began, his voice steady. You came into this courtroom expecting to humiliate a teenager. Instead, your lies have been laid bare. This court will not tolerate perjury, bribery, or the manipulation of justice. Gasps echoed across the room. The businessman clenched his jaw, but the judge wasn't finished. Effective immediately, this case is dismissed. Charges against the defendant are dropped, and an investigation will be opened into witness tampering and conspiracy. Mr. Donovan, I strongly suggest you secure legal counsel of your own. The gavel came down with a resounding crack. Ethan's mother let out a sob of relief, covering her mouth with trembling hands. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe. She looked at her son not as a boy pretending to be something he wasn't, but as a protector, a fighter, someone who carried a weight far bigger than his years. Ethan, though, wasn't basking in victory. He turned to the businessman, his expression calm but resolute. You tried to destroy us because you thought no one could stop you. But the truth doesn't bend to power. The next time you try to crush someone weaker than you, remember today. Remember how even a teenager stood up and won. The businessman glared back. But there was fear in his eyes now. Fear of exposure, fear of consequences, fear of a boy who had turned out to be stronger than the system he thought he owned. As the courtroom emptied, strangers came up to Ethan and shook his hand. Veterans in the back saluted him. A mother whispered, "Thank you for showing my kids they don't have to be afraid." Ethan finally stepped outside into the sunlight, the weight of the courtroom lifting from his shoulders. His mother slipped her hand into his, tears streaking her face. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us." He smiled softly. "We saved us, Mom." Together, the story spread across town within days. Newspapers ran the headline, "Teen Attorney Exposes Corrupt Businessman and Courtroom Stunner." But for Ethan, it wasn't about headlines or fame. It was about proving something bigger, that no matter your age, no matter the odds stacked against you, standing up for what's right could turn the tide. And as he looked to the horizon, he knew this was only the beginning. More battles would come, more trials, more people who thought they could twist justice to their will. But Ethan was ready. Wasn't just a boy anymore. He was an attorney, a fighter, a symbol. And he would never stop fighting for the truth. So if you believe that courage doesn't need permission, if you believe justice belongs to everyone, not just the powerful, share this story. Let it inspire others to stand tall when the world tries to push them down. Because sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that changes everything.